Sardana. Good afternoon, Mr. Sardana.
Namaskar and good afternoon to all of you.
Sir, as we know, the budget was announced yesterday with a key focus being on agriculture. So, how would you rate this year's budget as far as agriculture and rural economy is concerned?
As we all know that agriculture is a very important segment from many aspects. One of the biggest workforce comes from or engages in agriculture. Agriculture is also responsible for food security of India. Agriculture also provides inputs to something about 5,000 types of industries, which is not edible but industrial applications. Agriculture also is directly related to environment. So it has a multiplier factor and it has a multifunctionality. And that is why we should be very clear that agriculture, we should not only look from a food supply point of view, but it has a many more dimensions. With this background, if you look at agriculture budget or budget provisions in agriculture yesterday, as we all know that the priority is always food security. So that's why there's a lot of support given as usual, which is there in every year budget about support for fertilizers, support for inputs, water, irrigation, livestock, and whole lot of schemes. If you look into centrally sponsored schemes, out of 125 schemes, almost 40 are related to agriculture. So this shows that it has many more dimensions.
Sir, this year saw the allocation of more than 40,000 crores to the Rural Infrastructure Development Fund, up from 30,000 crores last year, which is amounting to a total of 16.5 lakh crores. So, however, despite these numbers, we see that there is a massive gap between the aspiration of the government and the ground level implementation. Where do you think we are lacking?
Obviously, the execution remains always a challenge, and we all know that a huge country, and there are all lot of vested interests which are there in the system. So whatever you do, there is always a leakage, pilferage, and many more challenges. Very often, agriculture is a state subject, so state government has to be on board because many places central government is giving an incentive to states and asking and requesting them to do the following development activity, and proposal has to come from the state governments. Sometimes there are challenges at state level because of, if I say that, lack of competency, lack of manpower, lack of priority, and there can be anything. So with these challenges, sometimes you will find that whatever budget is allocated, the actual implementation is sometimes less. And this happens because of various operational issues. So I think with the digitization, with the digital technology coming in, with the various new technological options to monitor the projects and quality and execution, I think things should improve because today consumers are very aware, farmers are very much aware about their rights, their needs, and they are quite vocal as well. So because of that, I think things will improve in coming days, and we should remain hopeful.
So, given that we are moving increasingly towards digitization and technology, do you think that there should have been a special announcement in agriculture and technology startup sector?
It's always there. See, if you look into, there is no need to have a separate because by making announcement, you cannot create creativity. See, innovations and startups are basically a human creation. And that we have to also keep in mind that when anyone in the system or any innovative person may not be sitting in rural India, but maybe in urban India or anywhere in the world, based on their global experiences, can create a startup or a technology or technology platform or any option, and that can be delivered to the target audience in villages, whether they are farmers, traders, buyers, seller, whatever they are. And I don't think we should be that much restrictive in our approach. Whatever allocation is there, it should be open, because if there are creative brains in the society and they want to execute something which is good for society, I think that resources should be available to them.
Sir, talking about startups, it mainly falls in the domain of the private sector. So we are seeing a lot of protests on the part of the farmer, but we can't write off private sector to altogether. So till what extent do you think the private sector should be included in the welfare of the farmers?
India's biggest and the largest private sector is agriculture. Because government doesn't own any land for cultivation. Government is not producing food. So India's biggest private sector is agriculture. Farmers themselves are private sector players. They are not government employees. They are not on the roles of government. So this is a big myth that the private sector will have some different advantage and farmer will have a different advantage. No. Farmers are part of private sector. They are not in government. That clarity has to be there, number one. Number two, the problem comes up when we find that there are small players and then there are big players in the market. And that is where the whole argument comes in when small player feels, sometimes that because of existence of big player, I will vanish from the market or it is going to be counterproductive. But we also have to understand that big players will never do those activities which small players will do because big players have a different structures, different cost structures, different priorities and different growth trajectory. Small players have to think differently. You cannot start competing with a big player. And this is well known not now, since historical days, that how big armies versus small armies used to fight. It was never between big or small. It was always between small and big. Or, there has to be a strategy. And that is what one has to look at it. And for that, what is required is competency and capability. And one area which I feel, which is very important and which we have neglected in last 70 years, is that we only told farmers how to produce. Ugaye kaise. Now challenge is that we have to educate farmers, kamaye kaise. So we have to move from production side to post-production activity. So 50% of energy, today almost 95% of farmers' energy goes into production. I think we have to educate and give them competency, especially the youth in rural India, how to understand markets. So that farmer, whatever hard work they are doing, whatever produce they are making, whatever they want to sell in the market, maximum share of consumer spending should go to the farmer. Unless farmer learns this skill, they will always remain poor and they will always be at the mercy of middlemen and exploiters in the value chain. So this is one area now I feel that government of India should look at on a priority basis if really we want welfare of the farmer.
Sir, when we talk about post-production, there are multiple issues along the logistics of farm to fork as well. What do you think is the main issue in this regard, and what can the government do in it?
Government is doing exactly that. When you look into infrastructure spending, one of the fundamental issue in agriculture is that production and consumptions are far apart. Where production happens, there is not a big market for consumption because there is no big market for simple reason because every farmer is producing virtually the similar thing. And they go to the same market. When they produce the same thing, go to the same market, they will never get the fair price. Never. Because there is always a surplus in that mandi or market and they will always get a depressed price. So we have to provide connectivity between consumption center and production center. And when I say connectivity, it means we have to look at two dimensions. One is the road connectivity, railway connectivity within India, and for international market, we have to look at air connectivity or water connectivity. So this is what Government of India plans are. And if you look into the budget, there are many announcements for improvement of road infrastructure, to improve the airports, to improve the ports, and a whole lot of other facilities. But the challenge comes up is that when our stakeholders like farmers are not aware of these developments and nobody is educating them how the economy is shifting, they feel marginalized and insecure. And that is what I'm saying, that role of agriculture universities and role of communication agencies, including media, should change. We should not look at farmer as only a marginalized society, but as an economic entity and how farmers can be linked to the main markets.
So when we talk about the communication between the government and the farmers, there seems to be a lack of it and lack of consensus. between these two bodies regarding the farm laws, which we are seeing in Delhi being actively protested against. How do you think there can be a common platform and meeting ground for the two sides?
Very interestingly, even just now before this program, I was just writing on social media that Honorable Chief Minister of Punjab says we are going to hire the battery of lawyers, those who will defend the farmers against 26th violence which has happened if there are any cases against them. My point is that why the same lawyers were not hired to explain the law to the farmers? If you explain the laws to the farmer, why state government failed in doing that? Law is well printed, it is available on internet. I can understand that farmers may not be able to read or write. Then what is the duty of local administration and local governance? So Parliament cannot go to every house and explain what they have, drafted. Parliament will pass the law. It is the responsibility of remaining stakeholders. So my question is, why state governments failed in explaining the law when other people were misleading them? Can they say that it is not their responsibility? They have a complete communication department. They spend a lot of money in educating farmers on many policies and schemes of the state government. When there was a confusion against any law of the land in the country, then what was the responsibility of people, those who are responsible? Because farmers are their stakeholders. Farmers are reporting to the state government. So any state government if cannot escape from a responsibility that it is not our duty to educate the farmers. So purpose of, let me give you why I explained this for a simple reason. Again, I'm saying through your channel as well, it is open challenge to anyone, come and explain to me which line is against the farmer's interest. Let us put that one thing very clearly. Second, those who have a confusion can always come out with their answers. And that is what the government of India and Honorable Prime Minister is saying. Come with point by point discussion. This line is not okay. We are open to discuss. Why we are not coming forward with the specific points? So it is a matter of communication gap created deliberately by vested interest among the farmers, those who unfortunately have a less level of literacy and other understanding of the economic activity. So these are vested interests at play, trying to divert the energy and attention of the country from development to the politics.
So when we talk about development, the government has a blanket goal, a macro goal, I would say, of doubling the farmers' income. With the present budget, how close are we to achieving that?
We have to also understand one thing very important. Who pays for the farmer? You and me as consumer. Today, you are paying suppose 50 rupees for a vegetable or a fruit. How much reaches to the farmer? Hardly 5 rupees or 10 rupees. Who is pocketing remaining 80%? Point is that farmers' crop is purchased at a reasonable, respectable prices by the citizens of India. But that money is not reaching to the farmers. So reforms are required. This money should reach to the farmers. So government can only create two things. One is government can create an infrastructure on which the food can move. And government can create an enabling environment where people can talk to each other and deal directly. And this is what the laws are. So one side you have a road, infrastructure, ports and everything. And another side you have a laws, enabling laws so that they can work together and create the opportunity for income generation. I think in this last 2-3 months, whatever we have seen, that government has fulfilled both the requirements for the market so that income can go up. I'm not saying this is end of the government role, but I will say that this is the important foundation for the growth. So it means whatever raw material farmer has produced must reach the market as early as possible, directly to the buyer at a higher price than what they are selling in their own village. That is first raw material step one. Now over and above, they can also create value addition for which they, in this budget, that's what I'm saying, there are almost 20 schemes for value addition. In this is, if you look into centrally sponsored scheme, whether it is for dairy, whether it is for fisheries, whether it is for fruits and vegetable, whether it is for food processing, food processing, trading, warehousing, whole lot of. And we can see that there is a complete list there. And as and when requirement is there, one can always expand in coming budgets.
That was a really insightful discussion. Thank you so much, Mr. Sardana. We hope that the year comes out to be robust for the agriculture sector, as much as it is promised by the government. Thank you for your time and insight, sir.
Thank you very much to you and all your viewers. And I wish them a great year ahead. And I feel that they all should be taking active role in economic development of India.
Yes, sir, indeed. Thank you so much.